Hello, hockey fans, gambling addicts, beautiful people of the internet, friends, whoever's watching this video. Welcome to the show. Today I'm going to be going over my futures and betting predictions for the 2024-25 NHL season. I have a lot of them. These are really fun to do and think about. I have some S tier, some A tier. I'm going to be going over the over under on regular season points first. I already made all my division ranking predictions uploaded on this channel. Now I'm basically going to go over some of those predictions that I'm most confident in. I'll get to some of the more miscellaneous futures like division winners or Eastern Conference winner after the bulk of this video, which is going to be regular season over-unders. Like I said in my division prediction videos, I also predicted their exact record and how many points they're going to get in the regular season, so it's kind of easy to see the biggest gaps between the books and my predictions and base how confident I am in those picks on that. So without further ado, let's get into it with I have 3 S tier locks, some of the biggest gaps between the books and my predictions. Starting off with the New York Rangers, over 100.5 regular season points. Last year, these guys won the President's Trophy with 114 points. My prediction next year is they will have 112 points, which is an 11.5 gap between my prediction and the books. And the books are saying that this Rangers team, who barely lost anybody, is going to get 13 and a half points worse. I absolutely don't see that happening. I think I think the Rangers are absolutely a 100-point team. I have them winning the Metro Division. So that is my first S tier lock. My second S tier lock is the Chicago Blackhawks under 73 and a half points. Last year, they scored 52 points in the regular season. And although they made some offseason moves that made this team a lot better, I don't think it made them 21 and a half points better. My prediction is I have them at 64 points next season. So under 73 and a half points next year for the Blackhawks is my second S tier lock. My third S tier lock is the Calgary Flames under 81 and a half points. Last year they scored exactly 81 points, and what the books are saying is this team in the offseason got half a point better. I absolutely don't think so. They traded Jacob Markstrom. I think they're going to be really bad towards at least the middle of the year and just start to sell. I don't know if Nazem Kadri is going to stay or Mackenzie Weegar. I don't know who's going to stick around, but I just have a feeling this team's going to suck and start to sell and trade at the deadline. So I think under 81 and a half points is a gimme. Those are my 3 S tier locks. Let's move on to the A tier plays. I have 3 A tier plays, all in the Eastern Conference, starting with the Toronto Maple Leafs over 101 and a half points. Last year they just beat that with 102 points, but my prediction is they're going to be a lot better this year. I think this is going to be a new team, new blue line, new identity. I had them in my prediction video getting 115 points, so that's a 13 and a half gap between me and the books. I'll take that. I think Toronto, the reason they're not an S tier play is because they have some potential to choke and maybe let down, their fans. So I put them in A. The next one is Boston Bruins over 99 and a half. I think this team is still solid enough. They pretty much just lost Olmark. Maybe their blue line is a little bit weaker, but I still think that they're a 100-point team easily. Last year they had 109 points. My prediction this year is 105 points. It's just a 5.5-point gap between me and the books, but I'm just really confident that the Boston Bruins are better than 99 and a half points. I mean, 2 years ago they scored 135 and 109 last year, so I think that bar is just a little bit too low for them. My third and final A tier play is the Pittsburgh Penguins under 90.5 points. Last year they had 88, so the books are indicating that they're going to be better next year when they really didn't do anything in the offseason and their core, which is the oldest in the league, is only getting older. I think that Crosby had an unreal MVP season last year, which is going to be hard to replicate, and I just don't see this team figuring it out and getting any better. I have them getting 80 points, which is a 10.5-point gap between me and the books. So that is an A tier play for me, rounding out all the A tier plays. Next up, let's go to the B plus tier picks. So I have 5 B plus tier picks and then 7 B minus tier sprinkles. We'll start off the B plus tier picks with the Edmonton Oilers over 108.5 points. Last year they had 104, and that was after the most abysmal start in like Oilers history. I have them steamrolling the regular season, winning the President's Trophy this year with 118 points. That's a 9.5 point difference between me and the books, which seems like a lot, but the reason this is only B plus is because asking for over 108.5 points from any team is a lot. So it's just kind of risky, but yeah, the Oilers are the highest. I'll go there. Next on the B plus tier picks is the Minnesota Wild under 94.5 points. This one might be controversial because I know a lot of people have the Wild back in the playoffs, but last year they had 87 points, and this is another team I feel like didn't really do anything in the offseason, didn't get any better. Maybe some of their young players got a little better, but I don't think that's 7.5 points better worthy. I have them actually getting worse, scoring 84 points in the regular season, partly because I think some of the teams around them in their division and conference are going to get better. So that's a 10.5 point difference between me and the books. It's a B plus for me. The reason that's a B plus, even though it's such a big gap, is because the Central Division is really unpredictable. I could see the Wild. I mean, between Minnesota, Utah, and St. Louis, those are just all hard teams to predict who's going to get in, who's going to be good, who's going to be bad. That 10.5 point difference is still worth the B plus for me. Next up is Nashville over 99.5 points. This is a team last year that scored 99 points, and the books, after what they did in the offseason, think they're only going to get half a point better. I have them winning the Central Division and recording 109 regular season points, a 9.5 difference between me and the books. I'll take that all day. I think this team got a lot better. I think the culture in Nashville is a winning culture. I think they're going to be really good next year, a cup contending team. I think 99.5 is too low for this team. Next up is Philadelphia Flyers under 86.5 points. Last year they had 87, and the books think that they're going to be around the same team that they were last year. I think they overachieved last year. They have the Russian scorer coming over, but I don't think that's going to be enough, especially after the loss of Carter Hart. This goaltending tandem is horrible. I think this team is a lot worse than people think. They should have been worse last year, but they surprised me, but I'm not buying into it. I think this team is still really bad. I'm predicting they score 77 regular season points, 9.5 less than the books think, so I'll take that under all day. And then lastly, for the B plus tier picks, is the Montreal Canadiens under 76.5. Last year they had 76 exactly. Books think they get a little better. I don't. I think they get worse. Even with the addition of Patrick Laine, I just feel like this team didn't do much. Goaltending wise, they're horrible. Blue line wise, they're horrible. Lane Hudson's going to be fun to watch, but at the end of the day, this is a bottom tier team. They're going to be one of the worst in the league. Their division is way better than them. I think they're easily at the bottom of their division. So, yeah, I'll take the Habs under 76.5 all day. That rounds out the B plus tier picks. Rounding out the regular season over unders, we have the B minus tier sprinkles. I have 7 of them, starting with the Anaheim Ducks under 70.5 points. Last year they scored 59, and I have them scoring, getting a little bit better than last year with 65 points. Only a 5.5 point difference between me and the books. But one thing about the Ducks, I talked about in my division standings prediction video, this team likes to tank towards the end of the season. So this is honestly also a mid-season kind of like double down team. But I still just think that 70.5 is too much for this absolute garbage tier team. I don't think they got that much better from last year. And so I'll take under on Anaheim. I don't even care what you put it at. I'll take under on Anaheim any day. Same with kind of the next team on the B minus tier, which is the San Jose Sharks. And the reason that these two are sprinkles is because they are such low numbers. The Sharks is under 63.5. I have them getting 60, which is only a 3.5 point difference. But this team is just so bad, and scoring 47 points last year, they got better for sure. Some great additions in the offseason, but 16.5 points better, I don't think so. So I'll sprinkle the under on San Jose, kind of the same reason as Anaheim. Just bottom tier teams in the league. I don't see them doing much better than people think and than the books think. Next up, we finally have an over. It's the Kraken over 87.5 points. I think this team is going to be a lot better than they were last year, where they had 81 points. I have them in the playoffs, recording 96 points next year. That's an 8.5 point difference between me and the books. I also think the Pacific is just going to be bad enough this year that the Kraken can get some easy points that way. Next up is the Winnipeg Jets over 96.5. This is a team last year that had 110 regular season points, and even I agree they maybe overachieved a little bit last year, but this team also didn't really change much in the offseason. I still think they're a really solid regular season team, tons of depth, the best goaltender in the league. I predict they get 102 points, 5.5 cap between me and the books. I think 96 is too low for a team that is, I think they're really slept on. So I like this sprinkle on the Jets. Next up is a tough one. It's Ottawa Senators over 90.5. This one's going to be hard for me to back up because they had 78 points last year, and the books are predicting a 12.5 point increase next year, which is a lot for a team that hasn't proven a lot the last few years. I personally have them with 98 points. I think they're going to take a huge step. It is a big gamble on the Ottawa Senators predicting they'll record that many points and make the playoffs. But I'll take it. I like Ottawa. I think their future is bright if Olmark can make a big difference between the pipes there. And lastly, rounding out the over-under regular season points, I have the Tampa Bay Lightning under 98.5. This kind of works well with the Ottawa bet as well because I think when one team goes down, the other will go up. Tampa Bay last year scored exactly 98, and I think they got a little bit worse. They're only getting older. They lost Stamkos and Sergachev. Vasilevsky should have a bounce back season, but I don't think it's enough to be over 98.5 points. I have him recording 92 next year, so that's a 6.5 point difference between me and the Bucks. I will sprinkle that on the Lightning as well. So I have a couple miscellaneous futures as well, starting with who's going to win the President's Trophy. I'm picking the Edmonton Oilers with 118 points. These odds are at plus 600. They are the favorite, but I do think they're the best regular season team going into next year with some of the additions they made in the offseason, with the momentum they have from going Game 7 last year in the Stanley Cup Finals. This one is kind of hard to predict. I don't think many people would have predicted the Rangers and even then the Bruins winning it the last couple years. So this is a tricky one. It's kind of a gamble, but I do think the Oilers are going to win the President's Trophy next year. Speaking of the Oilers, let's get into the division winners. I have the Oilers winning the Pacific by a long shot. These odds are at plus 115. They're heavy favorites. But again, I do think that I don't see anyone standing in the Oilers' way. Uh, Definitely not in the Pacific next year. So I like those odds. That's my favorite division winner. My next favorite division winner is the Rangers at plus 250. I think with the Hurricanes losing all the guys that they did, I think picking the Devils is just way too big of a gamble after how bad they were last year. And who else even is there in the Metro? The Rangers won it last year. They didn't get really worse at all. Full year of Philip Cheadle. I mean, I think that they're a solid choice to go back to back winning the Metro once again. My third favorite division winner is the Toronto Maple Leafs in the Atlantic plus 300. This is a scary one because you can pick the Bruins, you can pick the Panthers, you could even pick a super sleeper pick like the Sens or Sabres. I don't know. That's a bit of a stretch, but I like what the Leafs did in the offseason. I like the fact that they have a new coach. Their locker room, I feel like it's going to be different. The culture there, the way they play. I like the direction of the Leafs. I think that they can win the Atlantic and surprise a lot of people at plus 300, pretty good odds. And lastly, winning the Central. This is an absolute sprinkle. It's the Nashville Predators at plus 400. I think any of the top four teams can win this division, whether it be the Stars, Avalanche, Jets, or Preds. But I'm taking a leap, buying into the Preds here. I think they can barely edge out who I think is going to be the Stars coming in second in that division. The next miscellaneous picks I have are yes or no on teams that are going to make the playoffs. My favorite one is the Islanders to make the playoffs at minus 110. These are underdog odds in a division where, other than the Devils, Rangers, and who I think are going to be declining Hurricanes, I really like the direction the Islanders are going in. They were good last year. I think they're going to be better next year. So I really like them to make the playoffs in the East and especially in the Metro Division. Next up is the LA Kings missing the playoffs at plus 190. I think these odds are crazy for a team that didn't really do much and is just on the decline. Guys like Doughty and Kopitar are only getting older, and I think it's their time to go. They've been bounced by the Oilers 3 years in a row. I just think that this team is on the decline. I have the Kings missing the playoffs and making room for the next team on my playoff list, and that is the Seattle Kraken. I have them back in the playoffs. I love what they did in the offseason. Guys like Matty Beniers and Shane Wright are coming up and are going to be solid centers for this depth forward group. Their odds are plus 170. I really like the Kraken to get back in the playoffs in a really weak Pacific division. And we're staying on the West for the last two picks as well. Next up is the Blues making the playoffs. And if you watched my Central Division prediction video, you know that this was kind of my sleeper pick over there, getting the second wild card spot in the West at plus 195. This is really just playing the odds. In fact, all of these picks for the playoffs are just playing the odds. I'm not dropping, major units on heavily favored teams to make the playoffs. I don't like doing that. So I'm really just I'm not expecting to go 5 for 5 on these anyway, but just playing the odds here on teams that could be sleepers and make the playoffs. I think the Blues are one of them. I like what they're doing. I think they have some sleeper depth over there. And I like Jordan Binnington as their goalie and Joel Hofer as well. And last but not least, this is the biggest stretch at plus 225 odds. It's the Golden Knights to finally miss the playoffs. This is a sprinkle for sure because this is a risky move. But I think between them, LA, and Seattle, I like Seattle the most. And I think Vegas got a lot worse. They dropped a lot of guys in the offseason as well. It's going to be a different team over there. And I think the odds are really nice to predict a downfall on them. Coming out of the East, I have the New York Rangers at plus 650. I just think it's their year, not necessarily to win the cup. I didn't bet on them to win the cup, just to make it out of the East. I think they take that next step next year and beat whoever they're going to be playing in the Eastern Conference Finals. I just think if they can win a deadline for once, a trade deadline, and get some more pieces, whatever they need at that time, maybe some blue line depth because they lost a little bit of that this year with Eric Gustafsson, and we don't know what's going to happen to Jacob Trouba. But with some of the other teams declining in the East, like the Hurricanes and the Panthers, even the Bruins, I don't think the Rangers are one of those teams that declined. If anything, they stay the same. I have the Rangers coming out of the East. And that's going to do it for my NHL futures for the 2024-2025 NHL season. If I didn't bring your team up, it's because it was too close of a call. The line was probably too close. I feel like I covered most teams, though. I didn't want to do any awards just because I think those are really hard to predict. The only one I considered was the Rocket Richard. I just don't think Austin Matthews is going to go back-to-back just because of the changing dynamic over there in Toronto. But I didn't know who else to pick. I mean, Pasternak is the next best odds. You could go with McDavid or Draisaitl too. Kirill Kaprizov might be a sleeper one, but I don't think the Wild are going to be that good. So that one was hard. I didn't. Calder Trophy is really hard next year. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of good rookies out there that can win it. But that's why I just decided to stick with my regular season points predictions because I already had laid all those out anyway. Be careful with these. Yeah, these are kind of just for fun. They're fun to think about, fun to write down and track over the season to see how you do. But anyways, if you made it to the end of the video, thank you very much for your support. You're awesome as always. Let me know what you agree with, what you disagree with, what some of your plays are. What are your favorite plays? I know I had my 3. I mean, and if anyone's thinking about taking these plays yourself, I would highly suggest those 3 S-tier plays at the beginning of the video, just because of the gaps between my predictions and the books. But that's going to do it for me. I will see you guys next time. Go Kraken. Go Rangers, go Senators. Those are my teams coming into next year. So, thanks for sticking around, and I'll talk to you. Peace.